Yeah, thanks, Imtiaz. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to our esteemed speaker for today, who's based in Bengaluru, India. Welcome to our session, Management Training Preparing for the Future, a series organized by Alpha Education, Saudi Arabia, with strategic partnership with the University Executive Education. This series is designed to bring valuable industry-focused insights to professionals and aspiring leaders in Saudi Arabia. Every week, we invite an industry expert to share practical knowledge on key management topics such as marketing, finance, leadership, supply chain, project management, data analytics, and much more. At Danan Sagar University Executive Education, we are committed to helping working professionals upskill and thrive in today's rapidly evolving business landscape. Our programs bridge the gap between academic excellence and practical industry experience, empowering individuals to confidently navigate real-world challenges. Alpha Education is dedicated to empower professionals through comprehensive programs such as Executive MBA, Post-Diploma Certificate in Management, which is PDCM, and various certificate courses. We also offer free weekly webinars such as this, which is led by esteemed professors covering topics on leadership, strategy, HR, digital marketing, and much more. Our mission is to provide flexible, industry-relevant education which equips individuals with the skills needed to excel in today's dynamic business environment. Today, we are delighted to host Professor Anant Pophali, who will be discussing key performance indicators and metrics. We'll have a brief Q&A towards the end where we'll pick up a few questions towards the end of the session, and please feel free to post your questions during the session in the chat. Anand sir, with your permission, I'd like to introduce yourself to everyone who are present in this webinar.
Okay,
Professor Anand.
sure.
Yeah, Professor Anant Pophali is an adjunct professor of management at Danan Sagar University. He's a senior level executive with 30 plus years of experience in global IT services and management consulting. He possesses extensive experience of setting up large IT services unit in India and managing operations to achieve higher ROI. Prior to joining Danan Sagar University, he has worked with American International Group or AIG as head and director of AIG Data Services India and global head of IT professional services governance. He has worked for several marquee companies such as Mphasis, L&T, EY, Target Stores, and others in his extensive career. Professor Anand possesses extensive experience of working in global geographies, which includes 8 plus years in US, multiple short stints in Europe, Japan, China, and Asia Pacific. He has been solely responsible for strategy to execution, including planning, pre-sales, P&L management, statutory compliance, and governance of large IT services organization. Anant possesses a PGDM from NMIMS and Masters in Computer Science, DAVV Indore. In addition, he's a certified Green Belt Global Career Consultant from UCLA Extension, a certified MBTI, and strong interest inventory practitioner. Sir, it's a pleasure to host you today. Thank you so much, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Rajan, for that introduction. And it's my pleasure actually to talk to the candidates, participants from Saudi Arabia and other countries. I'm truly privileged to share what I have to offer next 45 minutes to 1 hour. And today's session actually. Metrics and KPIs are basically nothing but goals that business sets for itself. So the session is actually how do you set goals for a business? And in that, I'm going to cover metrics and KPIs, right? So that's what I'm going to do. Let me just share my screen. And I hope I'm audible properly.
Yeah, sir. Screen also is visible. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So I will, what I will do is, I will keep it basics in the beginning, because in 45 minutes, only so much you can achieve, but I'll try to make best use of the time that we have. And if you have questions and answer, if you want to interrupt me in between, I think I am fine with it. If you want to ask me questions later, that's also fine. Yeah, either way is fine. I think the later will be more efficient, right? We can actually have a discussion and Q&A towards the end. But I am okay either way, actually, right? If you think you are not able to, pick up the pace. Now, uh, what is the objective of this session, right? I have kept single line objective part to participants so that you have a takeaway. Provide a framework for organization to define and manage performance, right? So this is a loaded statement. When you say define and manage performance, define means set goals. What is define what business wants to achieve, right? Every year, year on year, right? And manage in such a way that business achieves that, right? To define is so when you say performance definition, right, or performance planning or goal setting, these are all the same interchangeable words, right? Performance definition, performance planning, or goal setting are one and the same things, right? So I am going to talk to you about how do you define performance, how do you set goals for a business, right? And within that, I will cover some basics of what is a metrics, what are KPIs, what are KRAs, what are KPAs, and two frameworks of how do you define goals for a business. Now, why are we talking about defining goals for business, right? Well, often it happens actually, people start businesses, large and small. When they become large, I think it is easier for companies because they mature and they know how to set goals, right? Obviously they know, but still they still face problem that so just setting goals at the top of the organization level doesn't help, right? Because goals have to be set for every layer in the organization, right? So that's where the problem comes. And startups actually specifically struggle to set goals actually because they don't know what are the goals they have to achieve, right? They know vaguely actually, right? So I will cover all that. Now let's start with the question, right? What is the single most important objective of performance management or goal setting, I think, right? If I and I will answer that question for you in the interest of time. When I take this class, I ask this question to the participant because we have a lot of time, right? I take a 3 hour class and a discussion happens, but I will answer this question for you people. What is the single most important objective of goal setting or performance management, which is a discipline of management, right? Single biggest objective of goal setting or performance management is basically achieve growth. Every business is there exists to achieve growth, right? Otherwise business will not exist, right? Even non-profit organization actually exists to achieve growth. Maybe growth in the area of the work that they are doing actually, right? Maybe they are providing food to somebody, they would like to grow in that direction. So achieving growth actually, but our discussion today mostly will revolve around profit organization, right? But the same concept can be applied for non-profit also. So achieve growth is the single biggest objective of all types of businesses, right? Now, but achieve growth in terms of what, right? Revenue, how much money you're going to make in the entire year, right? Profit, right? Revenue is the overall turnover. Profit is the net profit minus the cost. Revenue minus cost is the profit. Then market share, right? Customer satisfaction. This list can go on. There is a large list actually you can create. But at the top of the business, the objectives that CEO carries is like 4 or 5 objectives only, right? Uh, and they can be, I said, there can be more things actually. That business intends to achieve growth in many areas actually, right? And then since we are going to talk about metrics and how do you set goals, when we say achieve growth in terms of revenue, profit, market share, efficiency, productivity, whatever it is, but growth of what? Revenue is clear, money, right? Market share is clear. But then performance of, you will achieve growth by managing performance of what, right? Employees, obviously, because employees are driving most of the activity, right? But then there are other things, departments, Processes, you may have heard that in certain companies, certain processes are not working. Mostly companies which have strong and mature processes, they have very popular products, and then therefore they have a very high or large market share because processes are very strong. Processes are working. Our processes are performing very well. And when we say processes, business actually is made of only two, three things: people, plant and machinery, and processes, right? Uh, so people and resources, plant and machinery, and processes. So if processes don't perform, your services or product will be of poor quality. If they perform very well, then your products will be and services will be of very high quality, right? So performance of processes also makes is a big focus area, right? And we will come to goal setting actually. What we are actually eventually going to come to is that which are the areas where you set goals, right? So that we are already identifying processes. Then plant and machinery. You will hear in your careers that company buys a plant and plant probably is working at a lower capacity, or it's actually not producing the product the way it is supposed to produce, right? So performance of plants also, plant and machinery also. Then performance of products, right? Companies measure performance of products also, right? How do you measure performance of the product? Uh, Company starts, let's say a company is in the business of soap and detergents, right? And they are targeting that in the first year we are going to have 10% market share, but no one is buying the product. It means the product is not performing as expected, right? It's lacking some quality or features or whatever it is, right? So performance of product also is measured in the companies. Then some companies actually measure performance of strategy also, because strategy changes year on year. What strategy works, what doesn't work, I think also has to be measured, right? So I'm just giving you clues actually. The performance or goal setting can be in various areas, right? I'm just covering some basics actually for now. Then slowly we'll branch to goal setting, right? Goal setting and metrics and KPIs. See, basically KPI and metrics are indicators for goal settings only, right? So a few aspects of goal setting. Why? Yeah, it is clear that why at the topmost level business will set goals, that how much revenue we have to make, how much profit we have to make, how much market share we have to make, right? And what is the customer satisfaction, customer base. There are 4 or 5 goals will be set at the top level. But organization is much bigger. There are hundreds of people in the organization. Some organizations thousands and lakhs and millions of people actually, right? If you go to Indian Railways, there are 500,000 people working there. 4 or 5 lakhs people are working there, right? Uh, so what happens is topmost level is easy to set goals, but at lower level is very difficult. So the 5 goals which are set by CEO will actually convert into hundreds of goals at the, because for purchase manager will have different goals. Manufacturing manager has a different goal. Human resource has different goal. Finance has a different goal. Finance goals are actually related to receivables, billing, controllership, right? Compliance, right? But all these goals from the organization have to add to those 4 or 5 goals at the topmost level, which are carried by head of the organization, that is CEO, right? So why goal setting actually so important? Because company has limited resources, right? Right? And goal setting exercise, the framework of goal setting makes it possible or helps you to focus only on important areas, right? It is management theory also says that if you identify 15 areas that are very important, you actually identify 5 topmost areas and throw the other 10 out, and you will still achieve your results, because those 5 areas will actually ensure that you achieve results more or less in all other areas, right? Goal setting also helps you focus on critical and non-critical, spend less energy on non-critical tasks, right? And also alignment with the highest purpose in the organization, right? Goal setting also, as I said, at the various levels in the organization also ensures that employees are tied up with the business strategy and they have a buy-in, right? Unless they believe that company has the right strategy, they have set the right goals at the topmost levels, and therefore I have to contribute in achieving those goals, employees will actually really not wholeheartedly support those strategies. So some of these important aspects why you have to set goals at every level in the organization, right? Again, we are still covering some basics only for now. What is a performance metric? Now we are going to come to goals actually. What is a performance metric? So some of you would have heard about KPIs, key performance indicator, right? Metric is nothing but a indicator, right? It's an identifier which can be used to track and manage performance. I'll give you an example actually, right? For example, almost every business will have a annual revenue as a goal, right? So annual revenue, how much revenue you are going to make in a year. That's how you define annual revenue, right? But annual revenue itself is not a goal. Annual revenue is a metric, right? What is the goal? Goal may be, let's say, 1 million US dollars. That is actually goal you are assigning to annual revenue as a metric, right? Similarly, you can have gross profit as a metric, key performance indicator, right? If your 1 million was the revenue goal, maybe you will say $100,000, 10% is my, or $200,000 is my uh, profit goal, annual profit, right? And so on. A metric is a quantifiable measure which is used to track and assess performance, right? Now there are, and I gave you examples of metrics, right? Annual revenue, net promoter score, quality, number of defects in a product, right? Can also be a metric, right? So productivity, number of product produced in a day can also be a measure of productivity. So these are all metrics. Now metric are two types: leading indicator and the lagging indicator, right? And I'll give you examples of. What are leading indicator? Most metrics are lagging. For example, annual revenue. Annual revenue, you will come to know. Let's say your metric is your you have defined. You are using a KPI called annual revenue, right? Metric is annual revenue. Your target is 1 million US dollar, or let's call it 12 million US dollar for ease of understanding. 12 million US dollar is your annual revenue target, and annual revenue is the metric which is the identifier of that target, right? But you will know whether you were achieved 12 million only end of the year, right? Because right at the end of the year you will measure, you will know whether you achieved 12 million or not. But businesses cannot function. They can't just sit and wait for end of the year to know whether we achieved 12 million or not. So what they will do is they will set another metric called monthly revenue, right? Because they want to make sure that we are on track. So monthly revenue they will set, and monthly revenue target will be, if annual revenue target is 12 million, then monthly revenue target will be 1 million, right? Now, after 3 months, let's say if company has achieved 2.9 million after first 3 months, right? Now monthly revenue tells you, or quarterly revenue tells you, that we are not on target. We are actually short by 0.1 million, right? It is telling you in advance. In other words, it's telling you whether we are leading in the right direction or not, right? So monthly revenue is a leading indicator, right? Which is telling you which tells you whether you are on track or whether you are not on track, whether you are on track or not, right? So that's what, and there are several examples I can give you actually, right? I will just give you another example. For example, you may have heard that every business that produces a product will have a quality check process. Quality check. So there will be a quality control department will do the quality check, right? And many times you will find that QC approved sticker on the products. Now, what is the job of quality department? Quality control department. Quality control department simply identifies if the product has been built with the expected specification and quality, right? So they will inspect the product and they will identify if there are any defects, right? So let's say in a batch of there is a let's say pen. A company is producing pens. In a batch, they are producing 1,000 pens, right? So quality check will see how many pens are defective in a 1,000 pen batch, right? And they will say there are 10 defects, and they will decide whether it is acceptable quality or not. But if it is, let's say, in a 1,000 pen, there are 100 defects, then they are sure that if they let this batch go out to the market, the feedback from the customer will be very bad, and then further purchases will not happen, right? So number of defects are actually leading indicator. Number of defects in a batch is a leading indicator of customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction itself is a lagging indicator. Okay, I hope you are understanding what I'm saying. So when you set goals or metric, right, you have to set both leading as well as lagging indicator. So most business metric are by definition are lagging because annual profit, annual revenue, customer satisfaction, these are all lagging indicators, right? Lagging indicators you will know post facto as you call it after the job is already done. But you should be able to figure out while you are doing the job whether the actions I am taking in the business is going to produce expected results or not. And for that, you will use leading indicators. Okay. Now, just 1 minute. I'll just move. This bar is bothering me. Yeah. Yeah. So performance was one more slides on the basics. So since we are going to get into how do you define performance for a business? In other words, how do you identify metrics or KPIs, right? So maybe a couple of more slides on the basics. So when we talk about setting goal for a business, right? Most business heads actually or business owners actually start thinking about only outcome, right? What is the outcome I need in terms of revenue, profit, customer satisfaction, earning per share, right? The share value should go up and things like that, right? They think about outcome. But the theory says that outcome is good. You must achieve outcome actually, right? But outcome by itself doesn't happen. You have to also think about several other things, specifically three other things: competency, task, and behavior. And I'll explain very quickly all three of them, right? Or hopefully you've understood the outcome actually, right? Because businesses are there to produce an outcome. But theory says, and practical approach also says that in a business heads and leadership actually also should focus on creating right competencies in the organization, right? Unless you have skills and competencies in the organization, people with the right skill, right R&D facilities, right learning and development programs, you can't really achieve, right? So you need to have right set of people. Second, it says that you also must have tasks. Task-based approach has to do with the processes. So saying first you should have a competency, then you should have processes, standard operating procedures, right? Sequence in which the tasks will be carried out, right? Some way of defining how work will be done, right? Otherwise, how will you achieve the outcome, right? So first is competency. People should know, they should be skillful, they should have the right skills, they should be trained. Then second is organization should follow certain processes. How you carry out tasks, right? You have to define that. But that is also not enough. Then it says that after having people who are highly competent, trained, and defined all the processes, the way the task should be carried out, or standard operating procedures, as it is called, you should have people or displaying right behavior, code of conduct, compliance to task. Just defining task or process is not enough. If you don't follow it, then it's a problem. So you must follow processes. So people should actually display right behavior, code of conduct. In other words, they should actually comply to what has been defined. The way of working in the organization should be complied with, right? If you do this all three, outcome is guaranteed, right? In other words, what we are saying is goals have to be set in the area of competencies, in the area of process, in the area of compliance, that is behavior, and obviously outcome you are going to set. But outcome by itself you can't achieve unless you focus on all other three also, right? Now, let me stop here, see anybody has any question actually at this point. And we are going to now embark on two frameworks on goal setting. How do you set goals? Anybody has any questions at this point? Looks like no. We are doing okay, I think. I hope it is making sense, right? Okay, shall I continue? I'll continue.
Sir, I think so far good. You please continue.
Okay, good. So now we will, having covered some basics, we will now cover how do you, $1 million question, right? As I said, it is easy to set goals at the top of the organization because CEO knows actually. CEO is given this much revenue, this much profit, this much market share. But person who is manufacturing, he should know. He doesn't understand revenue. He has to talk or she has to talk in terms of how many number of products I have to produce, machine capacity, procurement costs, right? How much cost I have to save, right? How many employees, salary cost, and so on and so forth, right? So there are three approaches, right? We will discuss mostly two because we don't really have time. We'll discuss two, and third one is for actually startups. I will give you a very brief idea about that. So first is critical success factor approach. Second is performance driver approach. And third is strategic focus areas, right? We'll go one by one through these approaches. So critical success factor. What is the critical success factor? Critical success factor, as the name says, factors on which the success of business hinges, depends on, right? Every business has factors which are very critical for their success. Again, mind it, in business, everything is not critical, right? Large businesses become very big, right? Some things are critical, some things are non-critical, right? Critical success factor is basically essential elements that contribute to an organization overall success. They guide managers in focusing on what truly matters for achieving strategic goals, right? So CSFs, it is called, serves as a bridge between high-level strategic objectives and operational goals. Critical success factors are used to map strategy into actual operational goals for people on several levels in the organization. By identifying critical success factors, organization can prioritize what to measure, right? Which area to set goal, right? And which actions to monitor closely. Critical actions have to be monitored closely, right? And critical success factor typically tied to the organization's value chain, right? And I will explain what value chain is. Some of you who've done MBA probably can associate with it, but I will explain very briefly what value chain is. And lastly, critical success factors. I will also give you example of critical success factors. So right, maybe in a couple of slides. Critical success factors are starting point in in identifying most relevant goals for an organization. You start from critical success factor, right? So what is the value chain? This is the picture of value chain, right? This is the Michael Porter's value chain for existing companies, the top one, right? Value chain actually, as the word says, simply tells you how company creates a product and add value in the product so that customers are happy and company is able to achieve margins, profit. That's what value chain is. So let's say for a manufacturing company, if you visualize a manufacturing company, right? Let's say a company which is manufacturing a product, let's say, which is manufacturing a water bottle, for example. What is that company doing? There is a raw material is coming into the company through inbound logistics, right? Through trucks, right? And inbound logistics is not only raw material coming, it's a purchase department and so many things are happening, right? Negotiation and everything happen. But input comes in. Let's call it input. So there is inbound logistics, which gets the input. Then there is the operations, which actually does the entire core business process in the company, manufacturing, right? Creating the finished goods. And there is a outbound logistics for the distribution of that product to the distributor and to the final customers. And there is a marketing and sales. Now it's debatable whether marketing and sales comes before outbound logistics or after, but I think Michael Porter decided to keep it after. Now it is understood that unless marketing creates a market, right, you can't really sell, right? And only after getting the orders you can actually manufacture, right? Let's assume. But anyway, outbound logistics is for shipping the product, marketing and sales, and then customer service. These are the called primary activities in a company. But these are not only activities, right? There are lot of supporting activities, supporting functions. These are called primary functions, there are supporting functions. Firm infrastructure management, human resources, technology, procurement, legal, right? So many, there are others actually also now, right? So this is a value chain actually. What value chain tells you is that value chain helps you to break the business down, right? First, the top level, you're thinking only about revenue and profit. But value chain actually helps you saying that, yes, all these areas have to function in tandem. I have to measure performance in all these areas. Then only I can do good business, achieve my revenue targets, right? So I have to break these functions down into smaller processes, sub-processes, sub-functions, right? And I have to make sure that critical parts in these parts of value chain are functioning well. Those are the areas I have to measure, right? Those are the areas I have to measure. That's where I have to define key performance indicators and set targets, right? And those targets should be in such a way that align with the topmost goals in the organization. That's how it should be, right? So critical success factor approach actually, I will explain that further. But for startups, value chain may differ slightly because startups actually, let's say if you are starting up a company with 10 people, you may not have all these functions there actually, right? You may not have procurement function. A person may be doing 3-4 things actually. They're doing also HR, they're also doing technology, they're also doing procurement, they're also negotiating. So many things they are doing because you are just starting up, right? So value chain for startups is slightly different, right? Idea generation, sourcing and operations, marketing and sales. So we'll not get into too much detail, right? Because it's going to require much more time. I'm happy to do another session actually required, but I think I'll give you a flavor today actually. But value chain at this level also doesn't help. But then what you can do is you can break the value chain down into smaller components, right? For a large company, value chain can be broken down into smaller components, right? Again, we will not get into this because it can take a lot of time, right? But it suffices to say that every component in the value chain can be broken down to smaller areas, and right, so and then you can, so that you can divide and rule, right? You have a tighter control, right? Larger the breakdown, tighter the control, right? And there is a limit to which you can go. But I'm only explaining that you can actually, at this level, goal setting may be only for the department head, but then you have to go further down, right? For the sub-department levels and things like that, right? Now, let's discuss a little bit more about critical success factor. So critical success factor is a starting point for goal identification, as I told you actually, right? So let's just see some examples of critical success factor. Let's say airline. For airline, and these are the real critical success factors which I've got. I have not named the businesses here, but for an airline, for example, Southwest Airline, this is the critical success factor. Customer satisfaction using 99% on-time arrival. This is a critical success factor. Or this is the mission for the airline. From mission, we are going to identify, right? So mission, this is the mission of the airline. I'm sorry, not the critical success factor. Customer satisfaction using 99% on-time arrival for airlines, right? Now, if you see 99% on-time arrival means what, right? On-time arrival means it's not only on-time arrival. Unless plane takes off on time from the previous destination, how can it arrive on time? That is first thing, right? So on-time departure is very important, right? But between on-time departure and on-time arrival, when plane lands, right, there are several critical things have to be carried out for an airline. Checking in is going on much earlier, but boarding of the aircraft, right? As soon as aircraft lands, ground staff, aircraft maintenance engineer will come into play. They will try to check, right? They will do a 10-point check, steps, processes they will follow to do a check. Refueling will happen, aircraft cleaning will happen, food replenishing will happen. So many things have to happen on time within that half an hour, 45 minutes or 1 hour window. All that has to happen on time, then only aircraft can take off on time, right? Now, there are various functions which are working: aircraft maintenance engineer, food and beverages, security. So many departments are working. This gives you this mission can be used to actually create goals for all the sub departments which are involved in on time or in the ground management of that airline. That's and there can be several examples for a pizza company, for a hospital, and all that, right? So now, how do you convert critical success factors into goals, right? What you do is you follow a layered approach, right? You take a critical success factor, right? Critical success factor can be very big actually, and I will give you another example. Actually, we'll see an example in the next couple of slides. I'm going to give you an example, a real life example. It will become clear. So what happens is critical success factor cannot be directly converted into a KPI, key performance indicator. So there are three things actually. The critical success factor has to be broken down into key result areas, and then key performance areas and key performance indicators. How does it happen? So each critical success factor may be divided into one or more key result areas, right? What is key result areas? Key result areas refer to general areas of outcomes or output for which the function or department is responsible for, right? For example, HR, human resource, can be divided into recruitment is a critical area, is a key result area. Learning and development is a key result area, right? Marketing and sales can be divided into several key result areas: advertising, branding, digital marketing, right? Sales, lead generation, and so on and so forth, right? Because when the function is very big, you have to break this down into KRAs. Then Sometimes KRA can be very big. Then it has to be broken down into KPIs, key performance areas, right? And then you actually identify KPIs within key performance areas, right? Right. So let's take an example. How do you convert? I am going to again in the interest of time, I will give an example. How do you convert a critical success factor into KPI? Right. So let's start with a strategy or mission. Right. So we'll take an example of a app. A company wants to create an mobile app for, let's say, Saudi Arabia or Germany. The company wants to create a mobile app, right? So their mission is to becoming the leading mobile app for freelancers in, let's say, Saudi Arabia or in Germany or in India within 2 years. That's their mission, right? Right? They're creating a mobile app. Now, after you know the mission, right? What are critical success factors? Now we'll brainstorm and try to identify critical success. What are the handful of things that must go right to achieve this, right? That's the process of identifying critical success factor, right? Now what we'll do is you will use a value chain. You will use a value chain to identify, to do this, what are the areas which are critical, right? So you will use the value chain to identify. Now value chain says that fast product development, acquiring early adopters, and building a trusted brands are the 3 critical success factors for this mission or for this business strategy. Business strategy is becoming the leading mobile app for people in Saudi Arabia or Germany, right? For that to happen, fast product development, you have to develop the app, acquiring early users who are ready to actually use your product, and building a trusted brand. These are the 3 critical things they have identified, right? Now, what are these 3 critical things? I have to set goals in these 3 areas. Everything else is immaterial right now, right? So example is, now within that I am picking up one to explain it to you. This acquiring early adapters actually is one area which I am going to showcase to you, right? For example, how do you convert critical success factors of acquiring early adapters into goals, right? So your intermediate step could be acquiring 10,000 users within 6 months, right? Now, if you see, key performance indicators could be weekly active users, cost per acquisition, referral rate, and customer retention rate, right? Weekly active users means how many active users I have every week. That is one metric I will track. I will create a dashboard. My business will track that every week. How much money I am spending in acquiring a customer, because digital marketing or marketing requires money. So you have to track that also. Cost should never exceed the revenue, right? How many people are referring customers? How many customers are coming through referrals? And how many customers I am able to retain week on week, right? These are 3 or 4 KPIs I will be able to define using this approach of critical success factor to KPI conversion, right? That's how actually critical success factor, identifying CSFs for a component in value chain, right? And then focusing on identifying KPIs, goals in that area. Okay. Let's try to understand this, break it down. Mission to KPI example, right? The mission is broad vision or competitive goal, becoming the leading mobile app for freelancer in Saudi Arabia. Let's say, for example, this was the goal, right? A critical success factor can be, what is critical success factor? What must go right? User adoption, intuitive user interface, branding, access to funds. These are all critical success factors in ensuring that you do become a leading mobile app operator in Saudi Arabia, right? That you have a large number of users quickly, you have very intuitive, easy to use user interface in that app, and you are able to brand through those early adapters. And lastly, or maybe in the beginning itself, funding access. These are the critical success factors. Then how do I set goals there? Right? goals, you should ask question, what should be achieved under, what is the most critical goal under this critical success factor? Let's say business says we should achieve 10,000 users in 6 months, right? And then what is the KPI? What is the actual goal? That 10,000 users 6 months is a more of a quality, it's a quantitative goal, but it is not really a KPI. You have to pinpoint with the KPI, right? You will say daily active user or retention rate or cost per acquisition and so on and so forth, right? So that's one example. There's another example. I will just skip it in the interest of time because we have very little time remaining, right? But this example is similar to that example, right? And this is a framework that how you take a critical success factor, convert it into KRA, KPA, and KPI, right? You actually slowly convert that into down, right? So there are several examples of critical success factors here, right? And then how do you break that down into KRA, KPA, and KPI, right? That's the framework. So that's one approach. What you do in this approach so far, what we have seen is you take value chain, you take the value chain, you break the value chain down, then in that broken value chain or expanded value chain, right? You say you identify what are the critical areas, right? And then those critical areas, you will set business goals and then convert it into, it will be gradual process of converting into KPIs, right? And there's a list of comprehensive list of KPIs is available actually. I can share it with you if required, right? Very long list of KPIs, hundreds of KPIs that for every function, right? So that's one way, right? So we discussed that. Now second is strategies. Second is performance drivers. There is something called performance drivers. Approach of using performance drivers to identify goals in the organization, right? First was using critical success factors. Second is performance drivers. So how do you use? So you ask yourself for each component in the value chain. Again, starting point is value chain. In the value chain component, you use the performance drivers. What are the performance drivers? Performance drivers are levers, right? Is basically focus the levers like this on the left side: growth, survival, turnaround, stability, quality, customer satisfaction, leadership and innovation, organization development, and health and safety, right? For every component of value chain, some of this will be relevant, right? But the first two are growth and survival are financial metric, right? Which will typically in the sales and marketing area only, right? Growth and survival. Growth will be in sales and marketing area, but survival will be in manufacturing process areas also. Because profit depends on the costs, right? And who is responsible for cost in the company? Not marketing and sales, right? Functions other than marketing and sales, mainly operation, right? Manufacturing process, CEO's office, they are responsible for managing cost in the company, right? And ultimately costs are tracked by CFO, but people who are actually uh, running the operations in the company, head of manufacturing, head of operations, they are actually responsible for containing the cost, ensuring that productivity is high, right? So that takes me to productivity. Turnaround. Turnaround is what? Turnaround is a performance driver almost in every function of the business. Whether it's the human resources for recruitment, they should make sure that recruitment turns around people quickly. Recruitment process is running efficiently, right? So turnaround is a performance driver almost in every function of the business, right? For sales and marketing also, not only they have to acquire a customer quickly, after they have made the sale, they have to collect the revenue also quickly. So there is a cycle time in the revenue, right? So turnaround is one area, is a performance driver that can be seen in every value chain. Efficiency, productivity, average call handling time, cycle time, and so on and so forth, right? So turnaround will be applicable for airports, for hospitals, for manufacturing businesses. Turnaround has to do with the efficiency, right? Then there's another performance drivers called stability, right? Again, this stability is actually a driver which is there in almost every business function, every component of the value chain, right? Uptime, downtime, attrition, absenteeism. When you say uptime and downtime, how much time the plant is functioning, right? Is it working? Is it functioning 24/7 or is it down sometime, right? This this goal for uptime will be taken by people who are maintaining the machinery or maintaining the system. For example, banks. For banks, nowadays all the banking is happening on the internet, right? If imagine if the system goes down even for 1% of the time, there will be millions of dollars of losses, right? So stability has to do with keeping the environment stable, whether it's a system environment or it's a machinery or it's an employee who are attending office properly, right? There is no uproar, there is no dissatisfaction, right? All that counts in the performance driver of stability. So stability has a very wider meaning, right? From employees to systems. Then quality is a driver. Defects, mean time before failure, first time, first pass yield, return rate, response time. These are all metrics which can measure the driver of quality, performance driver of quality. Then customer satisfaction, leadership, innovation, right? There are so many drivers which can be used. So what you do is, what approach do you follow? This is the blueprint you follow, right? So what you do is you put the areas of functions of value chain on the y-axis on the left side. On the x-axis, you put the performance drivers and you identify what is the relevant metrics. So let me just show you the value chain again so that you are able to recall it, right? What you will do is you will take, this is the value chain, right? These are the areas of value chain. These are the areas of value chain, right? So what you will do is to identify metric goals in every area. You will put on the left side areas of value chain. On the top row, you will put the performance drivers, and the intersection of that, you will put a goal, right? For example, quality intersection with quality and operations, a goal will be in the area of improved product quality. The KPI can be defect rate, right? Cost efficiency and operations. The goal is reduce unit cost by 10%. What is the KPI? Cost per unit, right? Innovation and marketing and sales. Goal is launch referral program. KPI, new leads from referrals, right? And so on and so forth. Compliance, right? Can be a driver. Goal is 100% compliance. What is the between logistics and this? The KPI is audit score. That's how you identify metrics and set goals, right? I think we are kind of come to the closer, right? I'll just one or two slides I will show you more. The traditional approach does not work for startups or new age organizations. And for new age organization, research says that you set goals on the areas of product, customer, marketing, growth, and finance. These are the 5 areas you actually, because startups actually is not doesn't have a very well defined organization and value chain. Therefore, you focus only on 5 areas, right? But as you become big, you have to start defining value chain and start following traditional approach of identifying critical success factors, right? And then moving down from KRA, KPA to KPIs, right? I have also put down certain KPIs for startups, right? And also for startups, also for different stages of startups, the goals may differ, right? Because startups move from ideation to validation to seed to growth and to expansion and to maturity, right? The goals also differ because startups keep changing from one state in life to other state, right? As they mature, the the focus areas will change, right? Objectives will also change. Let me stop here and pause for questions if you have any questions or if you have any clarifications to ask for. I have spoken a lot in last like 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah, sir. Any questions, anyone?
Let me ask first question, did it make sense? Is the question I want to ask.
For
Yes,
me,
sir,
it did, sir.
indeed.
I wish. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think you have completely given a holistic idea of an organization, how KRA KPI can be designed.
Okay.
And also, I think the same formula can be applied for individual roles and responsibilities also, right, sir?
Yeah, I mean, similar formula, absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. You can actually use the same approach for roles and responsibilities also.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
it
and
can
as a
be.
whole company too, example, if I'm managing a team of 10, so still I can identify these areas and build a KRA
Yes,
KPI and all these things.
yes, absolutely. See, actually, it 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 is the roles and responsibility approach only. So when we say key result areas, see what we are doing, we are taking a business and breaking down into which are the areas I have to produce results in.
Yes, sir.
Those areas are key results areas. If a result area is very big, then you will break that down to key performance areas, right? Because for example, let's say recruitment within HR. HR is a key result area.
Yeah.
Marketing is a key result area. But within HR, there are so many functions: learning, development, recruitment, right? So many areas are there. Payroll, that becomes a key performance area. Within that, now you will set goals. Sometimes you have to break that down further. So you are absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. True, sir.
Any more questions, anyone?
Okay, I guess no questions.
Hmm.
So Syed Musabir has raised hand. Syed, do you have a question or you want to ask or you want to type your question down?
Musavir, you have a question? Sir, I have a question.
Okay, tell me.
Sir, I would just like to know, are you aware of any common mistakes you see when companies set certain KPIs?
Well, that's a great question actually. See, what happens is the common mistake is actually focusing on something which is not critical, right?
Hmm.
Because actually, see, the thing is, if you don't, the whole approach of goal setting actually is used to ensure that we focus on the right thing,
Right.
right? See, at the
Hmm.
topmost level, CEO knows that it's a revenue, profit, customer satisfaction, and earning per share and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy. It's easier because boards hand it down. And
Hmm.
people who have given you money, I want this much profit, I want.
Right.
When you break that down, let's say take example of large organization, steel company or technology firm like Accenture or TCS. There are lakhs of people
Right.
working.
Hmm.
When you break that down, that is the process actually. In that process, you will identify what is critical. If you don't focus on the critical area, you are actually something which is not critical, you are focusing on, right? It's like guarding your house. If you don't guard your house properly, a thief can come into it, right?
Right.
So that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Sir, there is a question. Thank you so much, sir. So there is one question from Mr. Mohammad Tausif. He asks, how can smaller organizations with limited data infrastructure begin implementing effective HR KPIs without getting overwhelmed by complex analytical tools?
Yeah, that's a great question actually. Now I think you have to take the HR value chain and you have to break it down, right? See, mostly what happens is there are two, three areas actually in the small organization which are critical for HR, right? Again, the focus may change actually, right? One is basic recruitment, right? If you are ramping up people, right? So you have to
Mm.
focus on the quality of people, turnaround time, and things like that. You can use a performance driver approach, right? Another area could be learning and development. Another area could be you are setting up your HR processes, because
Right.
organizations have to quickly set up if you are expanding quickly, if you don't set HR processes quickly, then it can become chaotic, right? Because people, then it can become an organization run with by exceptions, right? People are walking in and asking you the policy, and you are making policy on the fly. So 3 areas, I think: HR operation, processes, recruitment, and learning and development, and maybe, payment, payroll, and things like that, right? Essentially, what I'm saying, you have to take that component of value chain, break that further down, right? And then in that, you yourself will be able to figure out, at this stage in my company's life, what is important. You go and set goals in that area.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
A good question, actually.
Yeah, I don't think there's any more questions. Sir, I'll just wind up now. Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Professor Anant, for delivering such an insightful session on key performance indicators and metrics. Your expertise gave us audience a clear understanding on how to define, measure, and align KPIs for better decision making and performance management. And a big thank you to all our participants for joining us today. Stay connected with us. We look forward to seeing you every Wednesday. On behalf of the entire team at Alpha Education and our audience, sir, thank you once again for your expertise, and we'll be back on 4th of June with yet another incredible guest with another important topic. And until then, good evening and good night. Sir, thank you so much. I would request the participants to just stay back so that we can just quickly take you through our executive MBA program. Imtiaz, can you stop recording now?
Shall I log out? Is it okay if I log out?
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Much.
Have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you.